Hey guys, it's Harry here. In this one, I want to pour a bit of cold water on all the AI hype that's happening at the moment. In particular, I'm talking about Anthropic CEO declaring,
I have engineers within Anthropic who say, I don't write any code anymore. We might be 6 to 12 months away from when the model is doing most, maybe all of what SWEs do end to end.
I think that'll be really good news for OpenAI, because if Anthropic decides to replace all of their software engineers, I'm pretty sure Claude will be crashing and not running any longer pretty soon. It also asks the question why they're currently still hiring for software engineers. So if you want to lose your job in the next 6 months, I don't recommend applying for Anthropic's positions. Now, I genuinely have a lot of questions about how this would be possible to replace what a software engineer does from end to end. There are a lot of gaps that AI hasn't been able to solve yet. And while I really do appreciate AI and all the tooling and the awesome capability it's providing us, and I really appreciate Anthropic and even just look through their docs and the Claude CLI, how simple it is, the features they offer, and all the cool things it can do. I really don't see how it's going to be possible to replace what a software engineer does from end to end anytime soon. Let's take, for example, the C compiler that their flagship Opus 4.6 managed to build. Also note it was 16 agents running for 2 weeks straight, costing $20,000, producing code that was better written by humans 30 years ago. I do want to say that I have a lot of respect for the author of this article, appreciate the work that he's doing, and I appreciate that he's pointing out that the artifact of the C compiler is interesting on its own, and his main focus here was actually creating autonomous agents working together in a team. Let's talk about the C compiler that it built a little bit. As mentioned in the article, the generated code is not very efficient. Even with all optimizations enabled, it outputs less efficient code than GCC with all optimizations disabled. It also mentions here the Rust code quality is reasonable, but is nowhere near the quality of what an expert Rust programmer might produce. So if we're satisfied with code that's a lot less efficient, code with very low quality, then sure, let's replace all software engineers. The result will be very buggy software that doesn't really work. The future of business is to have beta software which is inefficient and full of bugs. So that just talks about the code quality aspect, but let's talk about the end-to-end dynamic of a team. If their idea is that we'll be replacing software engineers with autonomous sub-agents running and orchestrating together to produce code in a Ralph loop, I believe that we have a lot of problems going forward. And I have nothing against the tech. In fact, I'm busy running a Ralph loop right now. As you can see, I've got my Ralph script over here in a little simple bash loop, and I've got a nice spec for this idea that I'm busy building. It's busy going through my implementation plan. It'll be interesting to see what the results are. But this is more like an experiment for me. I see how it's an effective and powerful tool. However, I don't see how autonomous agents will ever be able to replace the kind of deep insights that a software engineer can bring. A software engineer is able to look at a problem and write such beautiful, succinct code to solve something which they just have infinitely more powerful brain to do than what a context-limited LLM with the current technology has. You even just compare like a basic insect, like an ant, and how amazing that life form is. That technology is much more advanced than the current AI. Life is truly miraculous, and the human brain is truly incredible. Even as Anthropic's mentioned here, we are still very early, and fully autonomous development comes with real risks. When a human sits down with Claude during development, they can ensure consistent quality and catch errors in real time. For autonomous system, it is easy to see tests pass and assume the job is done when it is rarely the case. So it's quite clear that even the researchers on Anthropic would actually contradict what their CEO has said. AI is just a tool for developers to enable them. You need to understand vibe coding is terrible. To just let AI write code without any idea what it's actually doing. So in this video, what I'd like to do is go through a kind of clunky example of trying to use AI and the kind of frustrations you can experience where AI really tends to fall short and is quite dissatisfactory in the developer experience. Okay, developers have all experienced getting stuck on a seemingly simple problem, which takes them way too long to solve. But in the end, it can be a somewhat satisfying experience, feeling like you've learned something, you've solved the problem and overcome the hurdle. The same cannot be said for writing code with an LLM. It's far too easy for it to get stuck on a problem and you get into a loop of trying to debug and fix something. However, in the end, once it's fixed, you just feel like you've wasted your time and that you haven't actually learned something. That's something I'd like to simulate today to kind of show you some of these pitfalls. So I have cloned an AI SDK repo, which is essentially just a little AI chat that's persisting these conversations to the database and talking to OpenAI. So let's go ahead and open up Claude, and we're going to give it a simple prompt to do a bunch of stuff. We need this app to become production ready. Focus on resilience and reliability. Let's put it into plan mode, and let's get it to output a bunch of code for us. I want the circuit breaker to use Opossum, and I want to wrap external calls to OpenAI, to Weather API with their own inputs. Now, the idea today is to use AI suboptimally because I'm trying to bloat up the context window, and I hope it'll write some bugs so we can simulate this kind of loop of it apologizing yet unable to fix a problem. And then we just look at the code and implement a simple fix. But bear in mind, like in a production code base, it's probably much more complicated and complex with a lot more context, which an LLM doesn't just have. So it's much easier to run into these situations where the AI is unable to write code properly. And I think this is also just highlighted when you look at people's efforts to implement like an agent swarm where multiple agents are running in parallel to execute some project autonomously without human input. We see that these code bases end up with like 80% more code than if they were written by humans, and they normally run with much lower performance. For example, the flagship now of Anthropic advertising the C compiler they've built, I think they should be a little bit embarrassed. You know, humans write 80% less code 30 years ago and build a more efficient compiler where like this $20,000 agent swarm running for 2 weeks straight writes a C compiler, which is great, but it's essentially copying existing code, and it's writing something which is suboptimal. So is this really the future we want? Also note, I forgot to add the little clause for my production readiness. Please check if security is good enough. That's a bit of a meme now. Okay, you have the OpenClaw creator saying he ships code he doesn't read. You have the Maltbook creator proudly saying he didn't even write a single line of code, but it's been a huge disaster. It's been hacked and it's highly insecure. So again, is this really what we want? Fully autonomous AI writing code for us that we really don't know what it's doing. We're just hoping it's working. This is the world of no software engineers that all these big companies keep on talking about. But anyway, let's get back to the vibe coding. You can see we're working very hard, busy trying to add our production readiness to the simple little API. Let's see how well it can do. Okay, so it's finished writing code. I guess the first test, let's see, does it still work? I can't see that it is working anymore. Can somebody maybe explain to me if AI is going to replace all software engineers, like how in the loop is that possible, where a user gets the end product and then it's not working? Who fixes it? Because you can't possibly take care of a production app, in a proper way by just prompting. It's just impossible. There's way too many vulnerabilities that you might introduce unless the software you make is just not important to your business at all. It's essentially beta, expect bugs, expect any kind of security failures to happen at any time. We really don't know what's in the code. We just got an AI LLM to build it all for us with 80% more code than humans would have written, and it'll be a lot less performant. So if anyone in the comment can just help me understand how we solve this problem, that would be great. But genuinely, I'm asking, genuinely, how is this possible? Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I don't understand. So what I'll do, I'll spend some time just trying to get this code to work. We can start with the AI route. I'm getting an error. Please fix. So it has removed the circuit breaker, which it claims is incompatible which is not acceptable. This is what we need. We need a circuit breaker so that our app runs well in production. You're absolutely right. So it's still trying to fix itself. It's been unable to produce a working solution so far. It's now on its 4th iteration. Okay, we're still not getting responses anymore. Okay, the UI is now broken. Whether it's working is a different story. No. Okay, it says that it's ready to work now. If you actually look, it created 2 implementations. One was for the weather tracker and one was for the OpenAI, where it seemed to think it was impossible to use Opossum, which is just simply not true. I asked it to fix the problem, so we'll wait for it to do that. Alright, so it seems that it's managed to unify the code. So let's go have a look. Okay, so the code works. And we have a bug. It's getting stuck on the first answer. So what is an elephant? It's 2 + 2 = 4. So there's clearly a bug. All right. Now comes the part that I'd like to demonstrate. Imagine you're a dev that's vibe coded this app or largely relied on AI to like build this app for you. It's used different library, Opossum. It's used the AI SDK. You've tried to add some production resilience, and now you have this bug. Right? And you don't really understand the code. So what would this really look like? And you really don't understand it, and you really don't know how to fix it. So your natural thing will be to open up Claude Code. Of course, this is a hypothetical situation, right? I'm just illustrating it. I'm implementing AI SDK. My implementation is failing. Whenever I send the first chat, it only ever answers the first chat. Okay, and what's going to happen now is we're going to get into an endless cycle of it trying to log and figure out what's happening with the message counts and which message has been answered. We're going to go down this path and we're just going to keep following it. And essentially what I can promise you is that this is going to become an endless loop of console logging and debugging, and which is not really helpful. And honestly, we can continue going down this path for a long time. Test, restart your dev server, try again, same issue persists. Nope, still not working. It'll add more logs. It'll eventually say I found the answer but not really fix it. I think we've all experienced this. What is corn? Corn. Okay, so we got corn. What is corn? Okay. What is a book? Corn.
Cone.
Okay. So it's stuck again, not working, still stuck on the first message. Okay, we can try and go and give it our logs. Since it's added a bunch of logs, we can bloat up the context window some more and make it even more inaccurate. Okay, it's still busy trying to fix the writer. It's trying to change its implementation of the AI SDK. Here it says that it has, fixed the problem again. I should restart my dev server. Okay, let's try restart, and then let's see if it's going to start working now. Name 5 Marvel characters. Okay, there you go. What is breakfast? Alright, so now you can start to see how this process is quite dissatisfying, trying to go back and forth without really reading your code or understanding it yourselves. So instead of continuing this loop of logging and not getting the AI to fix the code, let's go and have a look at it ourselves. Okay, so let's go have a look at our code. We can go ahead and try find the stream method, which is here. You can see that it's calling the execute with circuit method, putting in the name of this asynchronous operation, which is correct. Then it's passing in the operation as an async function. So let's go and figure out what's happening. We go into the execute method. You can see the operation's being passed through as a function with promise. And then you can see that the circuit, it gets the circuit from the name, so there's the state of different circuits, like a specific circuit which would be either closed or open. And you can see that it's using create circuit and it's passing in an operation and then it's firing the circuit. So the bug that's happening is that the first operation is the first one that gets saved in state, which was the first message that you sent. And it keeps on repeating exactly the same request again and again, which gets saved in memory. So instead of passing through the operation directly, we need to pass in a function that returns itself. So let's fix this. To start with, we'll remove this create circuit, and we will create a new one a little more manually. So circuit will equal to new circuit breaker. And then let's look at the signature. So it takes in a promise and it takes in the config. So we need to return a promise which just calls itself, so that it doesn't keep binding the same operation the first time that's injected. Rather, it'll call each operation that gets injected on the fly. So it'll be an async promise. It'll be a function. And then the function type will be a promise of any t. Okay. If I can still use my keyboard, that would be great. And then this should just return itself, as we said. All right, and then here we can just put in the config like that. Hopefully this works. All right, that looks perfect. So now, instead of just firing, what we can do is literally pass in the operation on each pass. All right, so this is perfect. We can write this. We can go ahead and retest our code. Hello, how are you? I'm just a computer program. What's the time? I can't access real time. So we've essentially managed to fix the bug. So this little illustration was just meaning to show you understanding code and being able to fix code in a simple way versus an infinite back and forth with an LLM chewing tokens in a very dissatisfying developer experience. Hey guys, I do have a lot of questions around how it would be possible for AI to do everything that a software engineer does end to end. Essentially, all the benchmarks and reports on these LLMs report on functional performance, but they don't report on the more soft aspect of software engineering, such as like maintainable, understandable code, let alone how this code works end to end in a team. Just consider somebody who has years of experience honing their craft. The kind of insights they have to offer a team is much more than just a little bit of technical implementation. But even when it comes to technical implementation, somebody who has mastered coding can write such beautiful performant code consistently at scale to solve really complex problems that would just simply be impossible for an LLM. You just consider creativity. The amount of software engineers that have creativity on a genius level that would simply be impossible for the current technology to achieve. The kind of like capacity that the human brain truly has, it's truly miraculous. Life is so incredible. The human brain is so incredible. So again, I really feel AI hype needs to take an ice cold shower.